Hello and welcome to another horrific chat. In this segment, we discuss the inspirations and motivations of independent artists, as well as their journey into horror. Tonight, I'm joined by Poul and Maja from Northern Nights and Darkness, a collective of TTRPG authors who create scenarios based in Nordic mythology and set in the region. Welcome, folks, and thank you very much for joining me. This was a chance meeting. I shared one of the scenarios. I'm part of a group. There's 4 channels that we come together and we play role-playing games, and we share each other's streams and we guest appear. I think it was just a post I made in a group that brought me to your attention.
Sorry.
Is that right?
I think we have an audio problem.
I
Sorry,
told you the minute we went live.
Yes,
oh,
you told me it was live.
we didn't pray hard enough to the internet codes.
I can hear you, but my dog was just barking, so I was distracted.
Oh, that's all
Can
right.
you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly, Maja. Paul,
Okay,
can you hear me?
good.
Have we lost Paul?
Probably not.
I think
Are we
I
good?
can hear both of you, but it looks like I'm on a big delay on the.
Okay, so I guess we'll just it'll even out. It's one of those things that's out of our control. Unfortunately, with the internet, it either plays nice or goes horrible.
Oh.
There's no in between. But I was just saying, it was a chance meeting. I think I was just sharing a game I was playing, taking part in. And that sort of brought us together.
I'm not sure I understood the question.
All right.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Like I said, it was just a chance meeting, and I was. Oh dear.
Is the sound all
Yeah,
wonky?
there's a private chat.
Ah.
Yeah, because that's going all over YouTube. Oh dear, that's awful
YouTube.
because everything was just spot on and perfect.
It looks like it works now. Maybe.
Have you a tab on in the background? Have you this playing?
I just closed it now. The other, like the YouTube
Yeah, the
link,
YouTube.
I
Yeah,
closed
that might
now.
be it. If you've got the YouTube,
Same here.
right? That's
just
you're getting it
closed it now.
twice. Yeah, that's what's happened.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
then people can laugh
I-
at us for being silly, but everything
Here,
seems
it
to be
happens
working
all
now.
the time.
Yes.
Like I said before we
Yes.
started, don't look for professionalism here. It's the internet.
And the gremlins are here.
Yeah, they're always here. I'm surprised that hasn't been a Call of Cthulhu scenario. Investigators.
Could be a copyright issue, probably.
Yeah, some cultist is summoning the internet gremlins, and the investigators have to stop them.
Why not?
Well, you just gave me an idea, and I'm too busy for that. But I think I'm gonna have to jot that down.
I was just saying at the start, it was just a chance meeting that we came together. I think I was sharing one of the games I'm involved with to a group.
Yes, you were.
Yep, and that's we have an active. There's 4 channels come together, and we collaborate, play games on each other's channels, and share. And it's really good. It's a really good and vibrant community. I suppose for the benefit of the audience who aren't familiar, although I've done a lot of RPG content, do one of you want to explain what a TTRPG is and what you get out of it enjoyment-wise? Why you got into the hobby?
Oh, how I got into the hobby, that goes back probably 40 years, and it was actually my mother. She gave me, and I sort of expected a question like that. My mother gave me one of these choose your own adventure child style books when I was 7.
Yes, love those.
And that was basically me getting into role playing games. A story that you influenced, that was amazing. I was an early reader, and I just picked up reading and reading books where you could participate and felt that you had influence was mind blowing. That was something else than the books we were given in school, and that's what kickstarted my role playing career. I don't know about you, Maya.
Actually, I read some of the same, like not those books, but they were called time machine books.
Yeah, that's
And
fun
they,
you say
yes,
that because
yeah, yes, exactly.
yep,
Something like that. It
I
it
never
was
heard of those.
not exactly like that, but I don't know if they were produced in Scandinavia or if they were produced in the US,
I
but they
think they were
were.
Scandinavian.
Okay, so because they had these stories where you could be a time traveler, you were sent back to like the samurai time or the Civil War in the US, and you had to sort of make the right choices to get yourself back to time machine and back out.
And I had some
Um,
with Middle Ages and dinosaurs.
yeah, that too, but I didn't have those. I only had like three. So I think
I
that
think
was
I had four.
samurai, Civil War, and one more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that
I
was the
had one
hobby
you
This
went
beginning.
through
started.
a castle. Was
What in
this
the
one you went
castle?
through a castle and was dungeons, and you had
That's
to have
probably
two d6?
the Finding Fantasy series
Oh,
by
oh, I haven't played
Iron.
that.
But that came next, and then
Mm.
somewhere around when I was 10 or something, uh, we stumbled on Dungeons and Dragons, and that was something that was an entirely different beast. And all of a sudden, you had a game master and instead of just the books, and you had funny Pohilridren shaped dice, and you came together a group of friends and helped each other create a story, and that was quite amazing. And then it just grew from there. And we back when I started in this, it was we were basically the nerds, um, and back then nerd and geek was sort of a word to use to bully people and keep them down. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Today, nerd is more or less it's a badge of honor.
It's a level
Uh,
30 wizard. It's just
or level close to 50 at this point. But
yeah.
it's an entirely different age, and I think that I
Mhm.
realized that we had gone from being niche and nerdy and hiding in the basement to being part of the mainstream when I got my own kid, and we have to buy a family planner. And the first family planner we bought in our family had stickers that said football and going to the theater and all of the different stuff you do through a week. And one of them said role playing. And when I looked at that little sticker, I just lit up in the broadest smile my wife had seen in a very long time. She said, "What's wrong?" It's this sticker, and she couldn't quite understand. My wife is not a role player, so she doesn't understand how come a small sticker, 1 by 1 centimeter, could be that happy. But it really felt like that. Okay, we made it.
Yeah, I actually think something I've been talking about with a lot of creators about the nerd sphere, there's still a lot of resentment towards us by the mainstream. The people that used to bully us in school can't accept the fact that we are happy and they're miserable. A lot of them
Okay,
are just
that's
unhappy people, and that's why they're bullies in the first place.
probably
And
Mm.
probably.
that's why there's this concerted effort to destroy our hobbies.
It's
Because
kind of for me, it's like a chicken and egg scenario because I was a nerd before I started role playing games. Because I didn't start until I was in my 20s. So
Mhm.
that's approximately 22, 23 years now. So I was a big nerd before that.
You
So
were just a different kind of nerd.
I was a different kind of nerd. So I found my group, my family, sort of like not family, but my chosen
No, but
family,
it becomes
through
like
role playing games and LARPing.
mhm.
Um, that was my sort of that now I'm home. Like this is where I want to be. This is where I belong. But before that, as you say, bullied, right? Because I was interested in books, fantasy, early reader like Paul, and then of course anything to do with fairy tales and folklore. I love Norse mythology, still do. So
I think we all
yeah.
do.
Mm-hmm. It's that I was 19 when I first started, and it was a Vampire the Masquerade. I didn't actually encounter Dungeons and Dragons till I was about 26, which is funny. I actually come in the other way. Most people start off with Dungeons and Dragons, and then maybe
Yeah.
actually most people start off with Dungeons and Dragons and stay there and don't
A
move
lot of
anywhere
people
else.
stay there. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Which
I
I
think
believe they're missing out.
I think it has a lot to do with what age you come into the hobby. As when I started, there was Dungeons and Dragons, and then came a Swedish system called Drakar and Demoner, which
Yeah.
was dragons and demons. But that's what was available in Denmark at that time, some 40 years ago. And then later on, I found this small niche hobby store in Denmark, which was actually a fantasy and science fiction bookstore and comic store, the oldest existing fantasy and science fiction and comic store in the world, called Fantastic, and they sold role playing games. And then I found out, whoa, there's all these different kind of games. It's not just this. And then I, basically bought a lot of different rule systems, more than I really had a chance to learn and play. But we dabbled in them, and we exchanged games and borrowed them to each other and said, hey, take a look at this, and I'll borrow this one from you. And then we tried making our own scenarios, or played the starter scenarios in the boxes. And that was a great experience. So I got around a lot, and didn't really find my home system. So I didn't stuck with Dungeons and Dragons, and I don't play all that much Dungeons and Dragons anymore. For me, it's now Call of Cthulhu and Delta Green, but there's basically not a system I don't feel like trying or giving a try, because I grew up trying a lot of different stuff, so it's fun to try new stuff. And I've been LARPing just like Maya, and I've been playing Vampire the Masquerade like you, and Werewolf, and the Guldo Ghostbusters, and name a system. And if I haven't tried it, I'll be able to, be willing to do so.
Mhm. Actually, one of the things I was going to ask, is there a natural progression from starting out as a player to becoming a GM to then becoming a creator of scenarios? Is it something you have to go through that journey, or can you just jump in and start?
I don't know what your experience has been, Maya. Can I jump back a little and then
Yes, certainly,
introduce
certainly.
us, and then maybe get back to that one, because I think it's an
That might be
interesting
a good
segment.
point because, like I
Yeah, we
said,
basically jumped into it
there's
because
meant
of
to
the
be
technical
instruction.
issues. But
Here, everyone's used it in this channel. They know we go on tangents and go around in circles. It's all good.
and that's
So
great.
yes, I suppose I should. Obviously, I'll give you a brief introduction, but yeah, Paul and Maya, if you want to introduce yourselves and maybe explain what Northern Lights and Darkness is about.
Sure. Like, I can introduce myself first, and then Paul can introduce himself and the concept. Does that sound good?
That sounds good.
So my name is Maja, and I am from Norway. I live in Trondheim right now, which is kind of in the middle of the long country. You have that in the middle on the coast there. I'm from a smaller community further out on the coast, so like an island. And the scenario that I released through Northern Lights and Darkness is set on that island where I grew up. I work as a teacher. I have autism, and I'm 43 years old.
And this is the first real introduction I hear from Maya, because we haven't really talked other than typing in Messenger. I'll get back to that. My name is
Yeah, that
Paul.
is actually quite amazing. I want to get into that because that's fantastic. That your first meeting is on this podcast. It's
It
just,
is. It's sort of funny.
it's kind of blown my mind a little bit.
It's cool.
Yeah. But my
I
name is
like it.
Paul, and I'm 47 years old. I work as a correctional officer or prison guard. And I live in Zealand, outskirts of Copenhagen, and I've actually born in Jutland, but moved here at an early age. Married. We have one kid, a daughter, and my scenario is set in Copenhagen and the northern part of Zealand. And the concept of Northern Land of Darkness is actually not the brainchild of it is our Swedish compatriot Jonas Morian. In early 23, he reached out on Facebook and said, I have this idea that it would be fun to create a series of scenarios written by people from different countries in modern time for Call of Cthulhu. And I want it in English, and I want to show the international Call of Cthulhu community what modern Call of Cthulhu in Scandinavia and the Nordic region can be. Anybody want to do this? Reach out and send me a message. And I was working more or less for fun on a scenario at that point. I thought that sounds interesting, and the scenario I'm working in, maybe I could change it up to be something that fits this. And I took a hold of Jonas and said, I'm in. Is there a deadline? And he said, I'm not in a hurry. I just want to gather people from the different Nordic countries first, and then we can see what we can make together. And then he reached out and I reached out, and we managed in gathering a small group of people together from different places. We have me from Denmark, Maja from Norway, and then we have Jonas from Sweden, obviously. We have one from the Samic region, and I'm horrible at pronouncing his name.
Yeah, because there's 7 of you at the moment,
Oh.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, but we've
2
only
from Iceland.
Yes, Theodor Halgason, and then we have Ville from Finland. And there is 7 others. We have another Norwegian, but Maja came in when she had to back away from the project, and she didn't have time to do her studying, and she had a big assignment that she needed to complete for school. So she said, "I'll bow out, and then I'll return with a scenario at a later point." And then Maja was gracious enough to step in and said, "I have a scenario that I would like to convert." So we managed to put together 6 entirely different scenarios. All of them is modern, and then we bundle it together and then selling it at a steep discount. We can put in a link later if people
the
are
link's in
interested.
the description, by the way, folks.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so,
But the dream for us was just to, have these crazy stories from Scandinavia and the Nordic region out there for English speaking people to play and experience. And I think we did a lot of work about explaining what the Nordic region is and our mythology and how it could influence some of the scenarios we've been making.
yeah, that was actually one of the questions, just for the because we have people all over the world watch this. What do you mean when you talk about the Nordic region? What country specifically? I know we're Northern Europe, but just for those that may not be too familiar.
Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Iceland, and the Faroe Islands, and then the Samic region, which it's a cultural region that is part of it. It has an
indigenous
area.
peoples. Indigenous peoples living in Norway, Sweden, and Finland, and some also cross the border into Russia. So in Norway, we have 3 distinct Sami languages, for example. Mm-hmm. So they're different culture, and so they count. I think they count as a kind of nation of their own, even though they don't have a nation of their own.
Yeah, they have a cultural bond, and then they live in a large area within 3 to 4 different countries.
All right,
and we were lucky to have him join us as well, and create a very interesting scenario, dipping into their folklore and combining it with the mythos.
Well, that's one thing, particularly horror and the role-playing community, always open to, out of any genre or hobby, I find this is the most generous when people want to share their culture and share ideas and create stories. It is an example, I think, of how people can still retain their own identity, but it doesn't mean you have to be exclusionary. You can share with others, and others can share with you
Yeah,
without this
absolutely.
idea of one has to override the other, or you lose something in yourself by sharing from others. You don't see it
Yeah,
anywhere else. Everywhere else, other genres is very antagonistic. There's almost
yeah.
a strange anger, yet
I
horror.
think it exists somewhere, somewhat in the role playing community as well, but I don't think it's as predominant as in other fan cultures. I think part of it may be from the fact that we were all outcasts and nerds, and so so we embrace each other and say we call with all these different ideas and let's what can we do with it? Let's put it in the melting pot and then we'll create something fun together.
Mhm.
At least that's my take on it. I don't know
No, I
if
think
Maya has a
most of us
different
have
take.
that same experience.
Yeah.
We're used to people
Yeah.
looking at us as if we're you like what? Why? And that is always the experience. And then when we find someone else, what you like this too? You're amazing. I like you, and that's it. We just
It's
go with it.
basically the same in the heavy metal genre. If you
Mhm.
walk down the street in a heavy metal band T-shirt and see somebody else, then you'll lock eyes and then you'll nod or fist bump when you walk by. You don't have to engage other than that, but you're part of the same tribe, so to speak, and we acknowledge that. Um,
Yeah. So I get a lot of positive feedback on my tattoo, which you can maybe see now.
it looks like a D20.
It's a D20. So sorry, it's just hard to see it
Yeah,
right
but
Just
in the.
don't
I can
break
see
your
the
arm.
shape.
Yes, like,
Break your-
Please,
so, suddenly very bendy.
All of a
Um,
sudden, fudunk.
no,
Yeah.
but I get some feedback on that because if people know what it is, they're like, "Oh my god, we are in the same tribe."
yeah,
And if they don't know what it is, they ask questions, and then I tell them about it, and they're like, "Oh, interesting. Can you tell me more?" So it's a really good
can I tell you
icebreaker to
more?
just
You can't stop
roll
me.
my sleeves up, like,
Yeah. Don't open that door. You'll regret it,
Yeah,
and you'll either be frightened or a convert.
No, but
yeah, you,
I work in a school, and I have had colleagues who thought that was really interesting, and other
that's the
colleagues who think that's for children, and they're like, "Oh, no, if I wanted to play, I would have done that with my 3-year-old grandson." So we get both, I think.
Yeah, I think that's sad because everybody
Mhm.
likes stories. It doesn't really
Yeah,
matter what kind of story you like, but if you like stories and you like reading, why not help create the story instead? I mean, we all
exactly.
we all played make believe when we were kids. We didn't need rules, we didn't need dice, we didn't need miniatures. We just made believe. And when we get kids, we play make believe with them. They tell us the rules and they make them up. And some people grow out of that. Role players don't.
Mm.
Uh, the
Yeah.
the themes may mature, but
Mhm.
we are still playing make believe in one way or another, in one shape or another. And I think that's fantastic and amazing and fun.
But it's not even a childish thing. If you go back to the basics of humanity,
Yeah,
when we huddled around the campfire for warmth, what did you do? You told stories. There was the lore
absolutely.
master, the storyteller. That was entertainment.
Yeah, no
How
TV, no.
Mm.
no, yeah.
Yeah,
How can imagination thrive? How can people be creative if you don't exercise that?
It's like any other muscle.
Yeah.
You need to
mm,
work it to get it to grow.
absolutely.
But once again, like Paul said at the start, nerds were reviled and hated, and then there's this period where we sort of became kings and queens because things became popular, like comic books, and we knew
Yeah,
the lore. And
yeah,
for a time, we were the lore masters, and the people that would bully us have this deep-seated resentment and hatred because their lives haven't turned out. There's a joylessness in their life because they weren't when they can't bully people, when they grew up and can't bully people anymore, they don't have it. So there's just like strange reaction of, we must destroy your hobby now. How dare you get on with life and not be miserable like us? How dare you have an escape? It's a very strange
I
mindset.
I I think I've been fortunate because I haven't really experienced that in my adult life. I've experienced people who are curious or doesn't understand it or not interested, but I haven't really experienced people actively trying to discourage it, or mostly
No,
it's
they,
been
they try to change it, and they try to say, "Oh, you're this and you're that. We need to change your hobby, and we need to do this." And it's like, hang on, we were all fine. We all got along. What's your problem? And then you
yeah,
realize that they've come from the outside. They hate nerds, and it's really just they want to break the hobby because whatever it might be. You've seen it with sci-fi. You've seen it with fantasy. It's just these bitter people who say, "Oh, we must get along better," but we look at them and go, we do get along, and we don't care who anybody is, as long as
yeah.
you enjoy what we enjoy. And it really does eat at them. I think because I'm in I do podcasting, I look a lot at social media, and I do see the try like they're trying it with horror at the moment, saying, "Oh, you can't use certain words because it's not for everybody." It's like, well, horror isn't for everybody. Role playing isn't for everybody. Those that get it will embrace it. If you don't, that's fine. Just don't go there. But they're trying to say, "Oh, you need to change this. You need to change that." You're a twisted person if you like scary things. It's
No,
uh,
I'm
it's a
extremely
strange.
twisted. Then
Yeah.
I, I I think we not horror is not for everybody, and that's fine.
Mm.
I am not very much into My Little Pony. That's fine as well. But there's a role playing game for those who are into My Little Pony, and they can play that. I'm not
Mhm.
going to discourage that or make fun of them because they're playing make believe and they're playing the make believe that makes them happy. And
Yes.
who am I to tear down their happiness? Uh,
No, like I
Playing,
said, we get it. We
yeah, yeah,
we
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 do,
understand. Be
yeah,
with me, but there's people that they just can't leave it, and the sort of jump. They start off with heavy metal music, maybe, and say, "Oh, well, those lyrics are too aggressive." Blah blah blah. And it's like, that's the whole point. It's a cathartic release. That's why it's
yes, it
aggressive.
is.
And they try to, "Oh,
Mm.
well, we need to tame it down. We need people with what do you call that? Auto-tuned vocals and soften it."
That's
And
great too.
then they move into horror books, and they go, "Oh, those horror books, you're using words like madness and insanity, and oh, you can't do that. That's going to be upsetting." And then they want to, and then when it doesn't work there, then they move in, they sort of come over to here, and it's the same group of people that just move around. And one of the things of this channel, I'm trying to push back against that, because it's not good faith. They're not good faith actors.
No, no,
It's
but
it's done out of hatred, but they pretend it's out of kindness.
I think that the three of us can agree upon that very quickly. So let's not give them any, attention.
Mhm.
There's no
Yeah.
there's no need for us to push back against it because that's just feeding their anger or resentment. So let's ignore them
Mm.
and have
Yeah.
fun.
But however, it's something that can be off-putting to creators. And one of the questions I actually
Yeah,
had was like social media. Obviously, to do this, to create a product, to want to sell your product, and for people to pick it up, you have to go on social media.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And that's the main hunting ground. You go out there and you're leaving yourself open. How have you found that? Both the good points and the bad points when you're actually trying to start a project and get it out there for people to see.
I've been lucky. This I've
Mm.
been playing and being a game master for close to 40 years. And I've created scenarios to play with friends. And this is actually my debut scenario in a release. And I've been logging and receiving a lot of support and positive feedback. Um, but it has been challenging and it's been fear inducing. Taking normally when I create a scenario to play for my friends, I
Mhm.
jot down keywords. I create the scenes and ideas in my head and in keywords on paper and maybe a few sentences, and then I'm ready to run the scenario. creating something for other people to read and be able to play from, that's a different beast entirely. Not something
Absolutely.
I'm educated in or have any experience in. And then doing that and hitting that enter button that said publish. Damn, that was scary. And then getting the first positive feedback in the form of a positive review and people sending me message and saying, "Oh, this is actually good. You've made some mistakes, obviously, but the core of this is great. And here's things you can work on to improve when you publish again. And please do, because we like what you made." That was just amazing. That's great. And I hope Maya have had the same experience. And the community that the 6-7 of us are is also great. And we've basically been using Messenger as our communication platform. We have a Messenger group, and then people throw up links to. We've been working a lot in Google Docs, because you can open it up for others to edit or
Yep. Brilliant. I
read.
use it a lot.
So that's super great. People open up the documents, and then we can come in and brainstorm and say, this doesn't really work. Have you thought about doing this instead? And then helping each other and improve. Jonas is great at finding grammatical mistakes and punctuation mistakes, which I suck at. I'm pretty good at looking at ideas and saying, have you thought about how about doing this? Could it be done like this instead? So we have our different strengths and weaknesses, and bouncing ideas off of each other like this has been very supportive and a super great way of doing it. And I've felt extremely lucky to meet this group of people and pushing stuff out for others to play with.
What about you, Maya?
Oh. Well, I had the scenario that I published was originally written in Norwegian for a role-playing convention called Icon in Oslo in about 2006, 2007. And the whole thing was originally improvised with 4 of my friends. We decided we wanted to play a role-playing game. We didn't know what to play. I said, what books do we have? We have Call of Cthulhu. I said, okay, well, I'll just make something up then. And we made the characters very quickly. So the characters that are in the scenario are actually based on those first characters made by 4 of my friends. And I added a 5th one after playing it again with a different group of friends, where we were 5 players, and so there was one kind of role that wasn't filled. That one of my friends needed to make a new one, so he did that. All of their names are credited in the scenario, actually, because it's been so helpful, because they made the basis of who these characters are. And then I wrote it down for use at the convention in Norwegian, and I hand drew some maps, and it was kind of very amateurish, but it won a prize that year for the scenario prize at the convention. So that was great, and I just thought, okay, that's good. I'll just put it online on my blog, which I had at the time. And then I thought, when Paul was asking for people, because I kind of ignored Jonas's first search for people to join the group, and I joined when Paul asked, because I thought, you know what, I can actually use that, because it's been played and tested upwards
And
of
we're
10
happy you did.
times. Thank you. So I thought, well, this has been so thoroughly play tested that all I have to do is actually translate it, and being an English teacher, I think I did a fair job. And again, yeah, Jonas is a great proofreader, so he fixed or pointed out the little mistakes. So I'm just very happy with the whole group. Like, I had to, in the beginning, it was very intense, and I had to mute the chat, because I was overwhelmed with different messages.
Oh, we write a lot sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I told you that, "Oh, I have to put you like, I have to mute you, but I
Yeah,
will be checking in," and it works, it still works.
yeah, it does.
So that works for me. So I just check in maybe once a day, see, is there anything that I need to comment or support or yeah,
I had
works
to do that
great.
with Discord because I've joined groups of the channels that I'm involved with, and that can be overwhelming
I
because
have you
you,
mentioned Discord, and I can't wrap my head around. I'm in a lot of different Discord servers,
Mhm.
but you know, I'm used to forums. You create a thread, and people reply in the thread, and you can find it always. In Discord,
Mm.
if you want to find something you discussed a long time ago, you have to either be
Oh,
logged in the
it's
search function, or you have to scroll for ages to find it again. It's just one
Yeah.
discussion that changed the. I can't wrap my head around that. It either I'm stupid or I'm old fashioned. Give me a forum any day.
yeah, it just takes a lot. I'm still I only joined it last year for because I joined Brotherhood of the Dice.
Yeah,
The League of
Mm.
Unextraordinary Gentlemen, we're now called the Wednesday group. But yeah, I was just a boom, 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 boom. And I'm like,
you're being
no, I
bombarded.
can't keep up
Yeah,
because there's an energy. Would you agree in role
Yeah.
playing with players and GMs? It's a partnership, and there's this creative energy which I have not found anywhere else. And I deal with writers, and I deal with also I've talked to all sorts of creators, filmmakers, but role playing has an energy unmatched anywhere else.
yeah, I think you're right about that. And as you said before, we walk out of a tangent. Somebody says something, and we grab it, and then we work with that, and then we jump back to something else. And to jump back to something else, you said earlier, is there a natural progression that you start as a player and then you become a game
That's
master, and
true. But then starting
and
on that tangent, and then we
yeah, and
went.
then you become a writer? And I don't think, not necessarily. Some people more or less instantaneously start off as the game master or the keeper. Or different games call it different things, but it's the same thing.
Mhm.
Um, I very briefly played and then decided that I like creating the Dungeons and Dragons. I like to create the ghost stories for Ghostbusters. Um, so I was primarily a player for a very very short time, and then jumped straight into game mastering. Some people's first experience is playing and playing for a long time. Some people doesn't go from playing to being a game master and then publish something without actually being a game master. Some people almost exclusively publish and have other people play it. So it's not a linear progression.
Mhm.
It's based on temper, I would say, or
Is that a
what you
good thing?
like or what you
Mm.
feel comfortable with.
Yeah,
Is that a
absolutely.
good thing? People just create it because my concern is my worry is because this is a vibrant community and it's a very accepting one. There are people who think, "Oh, there is money to be made," and they'll jump in. No, but you know how people, the truth is completely, but they'll just jump in. They don't understand what role playing is. They might have they
They
might
will
have
very
googled it.
quickly have a rude awakening because, yes, in theory, there is money to be made. The reality is that we're not making money of this. I've
Mhm.
I can't draw. You can give me a pencil and a piece of paper and ask me to draw a stick man, and it will look like a turd. The paper will be on fire and the pencil will break. So if I want art in my scenarios, I either have to beg, borrow, or pay. Um, so doing this costs me money, and I see it as a hobby for me. I have disposable income to spend them on a hobby, and sometimes I buy board games, sometimes I buy rule books, and sometimes I pay somebody to do art for my scenario because they think that's fun. I'm
Mhm.
working on 2 different scenarios at the moment, uh, and I am more or less 100% certain that the money I spend on art for those scenarios it's not gonna come back. Part of it will come back, and I'm fine with that because, right, I found that creating scenarios for people to enjoy makes me happy, and creating scenarios that more than just my friends enjoy makes me even happier. Uh, so spending money on the art and then doing the writing myself is great. Uh, but unless you really luck out and get a regular job in the industry, you're not going to make a lot of money out of this.
Mhm.
But
like I'm saying, it's not the reality; it's the perception.
yeah,
An
somebody,
outsider might
and then they
think
wake
it
up and
was,
find out, nah, it's not.
yeah,
It's not making her rich.
yeah. It's the same
Exactly.
with indie publishing as well. I've noticed there's quite a few people jump on that thinking, "Oh, I'll just make it," and then the reality comes crashing down, and then become very angry people, which goes against the whole spirit of creativity
Yeah,
for itself. The money aspect's a bonus. It's nice, but if you're spending your time being creative, it's not wasted. That's one thing I always try to encourage. We need more creators in the world, not less, rather than just sitting looking at a screen being told what to like. If you can create, and it doesn't have to be award winning, it doesn't have to make you rich, but just the fact that you're prepared to engage your brain, try, stretch your imagination,
yeah,
and put something out there is a rewarding
absolutely.
effort in itself. That's always something I try to encourage.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole thing Jonas wanted with this. He wanted to show what the Nordic creativity could do with Call of Cthulhu and show people in the world, and bring. It sounds wrong to say that you bring joy to people by creating horror, but
But you
people like
actually
to be
do.
scared.
Um,
People like to be scared, and we like to be scared in different ways. Um, I like psychological horror. I'm really bad with jump scares.
mhm.
I don't like those at all. So, ironically, I like horror movies, but I'm really shitty at watching them because if they include a lot of jump scares, I'll be, hovering above the sofa edge all the time. So psychological horror is better for me than jump scares.
Yeah, I
I
prefer that as well. So the or the splatter movies and that type of horror, I'm not that into. But if it's creepy and slow, and you kind of just know that something's wrong, then that is my jam.
you might have liked that one I reviewed last night. Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, Guillermo del Toro movie.
Mm,
That wasn't much in the jump scare. It was more this little girl, she's being plagued by fairies,
yeah,
but also it's a story of her, her family situation and the sense of abandonment, and it's all brought in. And on the surface, actually, a good story. Just a few niggly bits that weren't fantastic. Um, I don't know. I think I've watched far too many movies. I went to see The Nun 2. Uh, was
I
that
actually
last
haven't
year?
seen the Nun movies.
I haven't
Okay.
seen them
And there's
either.
these girls are like, oh, and I'm just like, because the seat was just laid back and I was tired, and I'm just like, uh and then this was a bit there's a priest on fire, and I'm kind of like, oh right, okay, something's happening, I'm awake. And then
Waking up to that.
there's a vomit scene, and I just burst out laughing because it was so ridiculous.
That's
And there
not
was
the right
people
reaction to people vomiting.
there was
Yeah.
people screaming, and I just burst out laughing, going, that's so silly. I think I've watched too many movies.
Mm, me
Well,
too.
too many movies and too many books. But can you
Oh yeah.
read too many books?
No.
No.
Actually, talking to, is there a higher standard because you're writing for a game? Because one thing that really impresses me is when I read role playing core rule books and scenarios, the standard of writing and storytelling is far superior than a lot of actual novels. Is there a different? mindset when you're creating it, that because of the level of detail and because it has to be actually tested. That
I think the playtesting is part of it. I know that writers have beta readers for books usually, but I think the involvement is different when it's a role-playing game, because you can't, as a game master or author, think of every scenario happening. We try, but it's a fact that no matter what you think up, the players at your table will do something else. You might think there's only 3 or 4 or 5 solutions to this problem you're facing them with. And then one of them will say, how about we do this? And then you as game master go, oh, fuck. Because you didn't think of that. And that provokes your imagination, and means that you have to slowly expand your problem solving skills, often on the fly. So I think that might be the case. That might be the answer. I don't know, Maya. You have some input on this?
Well, my scenario is so thoroughly play tested that I tried to include like all of these fail safes.
Yeah.
And because of the isolationist nature of the adventure that they were on, I think that it kind of limited what they could do. And also, I had a question like, oh, what if they just blow up the monster? And I'm thinking, well, it's Norway. You can't just buy explosives. You can't even buy a shotgun. You have to have a permit. You have to go into the proper shop. You can't just make up that, oh, my student from the university suddenly has a shotgun on an isolated island. Like, that doesn't work.
No,
So
that's
it's
actually
already
one of the
limited.
things I like about the Nordic setting, is that a lot of the customers for any role-playing game will naturally come from the United States, because it's so big over there, and they have a large population, and that also means a large population of role players. And actually getting Americans to understand that getting a hold of guns isn't easy in the Nordic region.
Mhm.
Even for criminals, it's not a standard to have guns, because it's difficult, it's super regulated, and they have to report them illegally from the rest of Europe. So yes, we have weapons, but not in the quantity that you would expect for your characters in a Call of Cthulhu scenario.
Yeah,
And
it's them in the
you
UK.
have
You know,
to
it's
and you have to work with that. So the problem solving will also have to include not using firearms.
Mhm.
I remember Maya saying that in one of our discussions, somebody just asked me, "What if we just set everything on fire?" Wasn't that you, Maya?
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
me.
and that's one of the things that hadn't come up earlier in your playtest. Then all of
Exactly.
somebody just says, "Could we just burn it all?" And you sort of semi-panicked and said, "What do I do now? Do I rewrite everything and take that into account?" And then we had a discussion. I think 4 or 5 of us
Yeah,
participated, and we agreed upon, no, that there has to be some work for the game master who buys the scenario to
exactly.
invent his own solutions as well. We can't take everything into account, and we can write everything that can be done, because it's impossible. So we take
Mhm.
the likely solutions and write those, and then the game master has to improvise a lot.
yeah. But do you think that
Yep.
is probably part of the reason, because you're tested that much? That's why the writing, because you're trying to solve so many problems, but also leave it open. Like I said, with most RPGs, the storytelling aspect of it, the building is just far superior. Like, they're an absolute joy to read. I say to people, even if you're not planning to play a game, get a core book, get Call of Cthulhu, get something, and try have a read at it. And actually, when somebody's telling you what the universe is and what the background, even a scenario, if you don't want to buy a full core book, buy a scenario, because there's so much work into setting the scene.
Yes, there's so much lore and
that you get immersed. You immerse the
Yeah.
players, and reading that, it would put a lot of novelists to shame. I agree myself on that because some of my stuff's just not
I think you're
fantastic.
right. As one of the things I find is funny is that as a role player, I can pick up a scenario for game systems I don't know and still enjoy the story, and still enjoy what's going to happen in this scenario. You don't need to know the rules to enjoy the story. I actually have a real life example from them.
Mhm.
I used to LARP back in the days, and one of the guys I LARP with started a podcast a couple of years ago. And the podcast
Did he
is
call it
based.
lightning bolt, lightning bolt, lightning bolt?
No, it's not. But it could be, or fireball, fireball, fireball. No, but it's based on a Danish role-playing system that he wrote, and I knew absolutely nothing about it. But I listened to the podcast, and I enjoyed the story, and I enjoyed the interactions. And once in every episode, there was something that was rule technical that I didn't quite get, but I could still enjoy the story. And then I would go onto Facebook and ask, what's that thing they keep talking about? Because I know the words, but they don't make sense in my head. So can you explain that for me? And then he said, you know what? I'm going to send you a word list of all the weird stuff that we use, and then you can, tick them off as you hear them. So basically 99% made sense, and then I had to ask for help to understand the rest. But the story was amazing. I can't push it onto you because it's in Danish, and I wouldn't want to subject you to that. But it's great fun, and the level of writing is amazing.
Yeah, but that's and I think it's that energy that we've talked about. That
It is.
Just it's a unique energy.
It is.
And there's an excitement, and when people get on board, just we're here, we want to do this, and how crazy can we go? And you've got all these weird and wonderful personalities that somehow manage to come together and create wonderful stories around a tabletop.
That's what we do. And
sorry, go ahead.
No, you asked about our writing process. I think we've touched on that, and we've touched about the fact that Maya and I obviously likes horror, and I think the special brand of horror that comes out of Europe and Scandinavia is because it's dark here all the time. We have a lot of darkness. The sun rises late and it vanishes early. There's a lot of nature around, and we are alone with our darkness and our weird natural phenomenons. The Nordic, and that's how the Nordic light came into being, is that we have Nordic lights. Why not use it in the title? It makes sense. But our inspiration comes from the fact that we have a lot of darkness and we had a lot of dark mythology. We have a lot of, different versions of boogeymen. My inspiration comes a lot. I like hiking. So for me, getting up at 5 or 6 in the morning and walking 20 kilometers in a dark forest alone is an instant source of inspiration. I'm not afraid to be in a dark forest, but I can inspire from a dark forest to write scary stuff for others. And I think that's where a lot of our weird boogeymen come from in the Nordic region, because we have all these weird natural phenomenons of lights and sounds and lots of darkness, and that inspires a lot of the weird boogeymen. We have, I know there's something called Nyckeln in Sweden, which is, if I'm not much mistaken, I might mix two things up, but it's basically a creature that lures you into water to drown you.
Yes, in a lake. It's the same in Norway. So Nyckeln lives in a lake.
Yeah.
All right,
and it
we've got
lures
a
you into the
legend
lake
called
to drown you.
Kelpies.
Yeah, Kelpies, that's horses, right?
Yeah, like seahorse that waits by the lake.
That make you ride them and then ride you into the lake. And we have them here where it's a beautiful man or a beautiful woman. that lures you
Yep.
to come live
Well,
under
that's original
the ocean.
mermaid. Sort of the mermaid story comes
Yeah,
from, isn't it?
sort of. The original
It's not
mermaid actually
exactly that,
saves
but
people.
mm,
And then there's the
Sorry.
merman who tries to lure you down to live under the ocean.
Mhm.
But a lot of
but
all of
in
these,
in freshwater, the Nukken is in in freshwater.
yes, it
I
is.
think in
Yeah,
the
I think so too.
mermaids and mermen are in the salty, like in the ocean.
Yeah, and then we
So
have
that I think that's the difference.
in Danish we have something called a lygtemand, which is basically
Mhm.
small lights that lure you into the bog. I think you have them in the UK as well. But it's created by natural gases that reflects light. So when you try to hunt this light, you'll lure it further and further into the bog and usually drown.
Mhm.
But it's all inspired by natural events that creates a supernatural effect when you don't know the story behind it. And we have a lot of that in the Nordic region, which inspires us.
Yes, but has any of the sort of Nordic stories have? Can you give examples of anything that's reached sort of popular culture, movies, or anything that's well known, or is this an untapped
So
resource?
trolls,
Storytelling?
maybe
Trolls
Norwegian
is
trolls.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I don't
in the
know.
pop culture.
Is
I
are
mean,
trolls
everybody knows
also
what a
in?
troll is.
Yep.
But do you have trolls in Denmark?
Yes, we do. We have
Yeah,
stories of trolls, and we actually
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
as
Like not real trolls,
no,
obviously.
Oh, didn't that come out last year? That movie,
which one of them?
um,
Trolls, wasn't it? Was there a movie about trolls last year?
I
If you mean the one with the pink hair and everything, that was a children's
yeah,
Oh
cartoon, I
no, no,
think.
no! I mean the horror story that the woke it up,
Yes, that came out
wasn't
last
there?
year. Yes, and that
okay,
was
yeah.
in Norway, as
I
far as
haven't.
I recall.
Yeah, it's Norwegian. I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
I saw the previous one, which was a horror slash comedy, which was also really
uh,
good.
with that troll hunter.
Yeah, Troll
That was
Hunter.
the found footage.
Yeah, it's
Troll Hunter
it
was.
works like found footage, and it was a
Yes, it was.
troll hunter who tried to. Yeah,
Yep, I
so
enjoyed that one actually.
And that
People
I liked it.
make fun of me for liking that movie, and I'm like, that's the one of the
yeah,
only found footage movies I like. The rest of them are awful, but that had a comedic value to it, and I like watching
yeah.
with subtitles. I
Yeah.
don't like dubbed over with English,
No, I
so
have the
I
same.
like to hear the original voice. And
I'm the
like
Yep.
same way.
I grew up in Hong Kong martial arts movies, so I'm
Yeah,
used to the bad dubbing, but I prefer to hear the inflection and tone of the original actor
yeah,
and then
same
just
here.
read myself as I go along. So, Moloch, that was another one that I remember watching. That
I
came
don't
out
remember
last year.
watching that one, but Trolls is
I don't
absolutely the
know what that
biggest
is.
pop culture thing that's spread from the
Yeah,
Nordic region and out to
Mhm.
the rest of the world. Um,
and especially because it's also in Dungeons and Dragons, except it's not the Norwegian version. It's called the
no,
troll,
that's
but it's
different.
not.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
then there's the river trolls or the
completely
water
different.
trolls, which are,
Yeah,
and then you have stone trolls and stone giants.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Yeah,
so
first
that's
I was
sort of,
playing I
and
played
then there's
Dragon.
of course the Nordic mythology has been used
Yeah.
for all sorts of things. Marvel borrowed a lot of it.
Hmm.
Um,
And Marvel, of course, gets it all.
yes, of course they do. Uh,
And they make it
oh,
stupid.
Yeah, that
yes,
too. But I mean, it's
they
entertaining.
make some of it stupid,
I
but
love it. But
other parts of it they make entertainment. And sometimes stupid is a quality in itself because it will make you laugh. Maybe not with them, but of them. But it's still fun. Uh, so, but
I still enjoyed. I enjoyed the Thor movies. I enjoyed the Loki
yeah,
show. I really like that. It's just it's not Norse mythology. It's a Marvel
it's
It's
thing.
inspired
I
Americanized.
by
just need to separate the two,
yeah,
and then it's fine.
yeah.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
I give up on those because it became so generic and boring and
It's
CGI
It's a
slowly
taste.
it's
fest.
slowly degenerated in quality, but it
Yeah,
started out great.
it started out. I
And
had a
then
lot of fun up
and some of
until
even some of the worst Marvel movies, I still think have elements that are fun or interesting or spark some sort of idea I can use for something else.
Mm.
So, but
yeah, it's It's annoying that because one thing about horror movies is horror will travel the globe.
Yeah.
To get a good horror story.
It
You
works
even go
in
back to the Hammer horror, like the Abominable Snowman,
yes,
the Curse of Frankenstein.
Mhm.
They're prepared to do it in the region. They're prepared to go and look for that obscure story, and like the resurgence of South Korean horror, Last Train to Busan, and even Taiwanese, like the Sadness
yes,
maze. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Horror is one genre that's not afraid to go to any culture and go, tell us your stories, please. We want to hear them. Tell us your scary stories. We love it.
yeah. But
Other genres
it's
are
not just
afraid.
horror. It's basically any kind of fairy tale. People people want to experience other cultures' fairy tales.
Mhm.
The Brothers Grimm collected everything in Europe, and it's shared worldwide. Um,
Mhm.
Hans Christian Andersen wrote a lot of children's tales, and they are read in China. Sometimes people in China will learn Danish just to read it in the original language. People want stories, and if it's a good story, they don't care what country it's from.
Yep, that's it. So
Yeah,
I don't understand this. I think it's a very American thing where it has to be them. They can't deal with it in
yeah,
the original. It has to be them. It has to be translated to them. It has to show current modern day American people. They all have to be from Southern California. And you're like, why?
yeah. I
It's
don't know
totally
what.
fine the way it was. We had a good discussion actually. I had a few people on, and we did morality and horror.
Yeah,
So we
Mhm.
talked about the moral tales, and we talked about Hans Christian Andersen. We talked about the grim fairy tales. We even went right back to some of the earliest examples of how horror was a warning. It was always a method of keeping people safe, and
yes,
not an enjoyment of suffering, but it was actually the opposite.
yeah.
You don't go
Like,
into the basement. You don't step off the path in the woods.
No, no.
No,
There's a. It's sort of like that's a change of pace, but it's the
mhm,
same with religion. Take Islam; they are not allowed to eat pork. There's a reason for that. Pork in a very dry, warm climate will go very bad very quickly and make you sick
Mhm.
and kill you. And if you can't explain that, you know, why it happens, you create a dogma to tell people don't do it. It's
mhm.
haram. It's not allowed. But there's an underlying reason why it's not allowed. But just using it in a religion, you create a rule instead to avoid people dying from eating pork. It makes sense. Not straying off the path
Yeah. No, and because I think
makes
shellfish as well as in some is it
yeah,
That is the
Judaism?
kosher in
Yes, you know
Judaism.
what I mean.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
yeah, same reason. It's
yeah. And the
Mhm.
same, you don't walk off the beaten path in the forest. No, because then you get eaten by wolves. There's a reason not to do it.
mhm.
And sometimes you just have to create a story or a dogma in a religion to make people, obey these rules because otherwise you die.
Yeah, and I think one thing horror reminds us that we're not the top of the food chain.
Yeah,
We're
we're
not
not
that.
at all.
There's this arrogance of being human that we're the best that we can be, and nothing can beat us. And there's also this strange notion that we're not going to get better from here. This is it. And you can actually see it with storytelling because everything's a rehash, a remake, a reboot. It's almost as if storytelling had stopped in the sort of general sphere because they're just going over the same thing where let's go into role playing. You can't do that
Mhm.
because once you've played a scenario, there's a hunger for a new scenario. I mean, you can only play one scenario so often before it runs out of steam.
Yeah,
So there's that
Yeah,
hunger,
but
I think, and
you
that's
can still, I think you can still reuse the same elements because, in the same vein as we talked about religion, is also that the myths around the world and religions around the world, which are also in, for me, myths, but
Mhm.
they all have similar elements. They all have similar designs. They all have similar themes. And it's the same with role playing games and with all kinds of stories. It's the same themes, it's just told differently.
Yeah,
yeah,
And what's unique about role playing games, of course, is that the players will decide how it plays out through their
Yeah.
characters. It's not predetermined. So even if you have the same scenario with the same themes, same topics, the same ideas, the same devices, you will get two different player experiences with two different groups.
Yes,
Because they will
absolutely.
take those and run with them differently.
And that's
Yeah,
why it's
we
fun
had
as a
two
game
groups playing.
master.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
Mm.
same here. But as a game master, you can run the same scenario a lot of times with different groups because you will get a lot of different stories out of it. And you will, the experience you gain from one scenario will influence you on how you can play it the next time. And then
Exactly.
two very creative players will change it up, and then you have to improvise again and again and again. And that's one of the fun
Mhm.
things about being the game master, is that the players keep you on your
Mhm.
on your feet all the time.
But generally, you have the
Mhm.
same group. You have the same group to play game after game, so there's always a hunger for new
Yeah,
stories, which
yeah,
I
yeah.
think lends to that creativity. I think it's a good thing.
It is. It
I mean,
is.
I'm not
It
saying it's a bad
Mm.
thing. I'm saying it's
not at all.
you see modern entertainment, you see storytelling just ground to a halt, and they can't think of anything new.
I
Yet,
I I I don't think it's because they can't think of anything new. I think it's because Hollywood is what you call conservative. They
Mhm.
have they have a receipt that works. So let's not try to stray too much from that, because we need the save money.
Mhm.
Uh, and I think that's
Agree.
what happens, is that sometimes they take a chance on a movie that's way out there, and then it turns out to be a huge success. And that's because people want something different. They want something new. So whenever they actually take a chance and it pays off, uh, it fosters more creativity. I just think that the money men in Hollywood are too afraid to actually support
well,
some
the
of the weird
budgets are
ideas.
ridiculous as well. The amount of money they spend in movies is stupid. It's just nonsense. Like hundreds of millions on one movie all the time, and there's no mid level
No,
like 40
no,
million budget. There's no 10 million budget. There's no that's all gone. It's all
yeah,
everything or bust. And that, like I said, that's all ground to a halt.
yeah,
Where I'm seeing a continuous vibrancy, a real energy in the role playing community. And this lately, that more people are creating scenarios
yeah,
for
absolutely.
Mhm.
games, and especially Call of Cthulhu. The You have to laugh at Wizards of the Coast. They really shot themselves in the foot with the OGL.
Oh, don't
they
get me started
they
on that.
Yeah, that
were.
was bad.
I have never laughed so much.
But again, that's, that's big money that
Yeah,
talks and think we can regulate this and make even more money, but they don't understand the fan base.
yeah, and
Exactly. Mm.
Original TSR would have told them this won't work. It won't float. And they found out, there's a saying, I don't know how PG this channel is, but there's a saying that
that's
says,
fuck it. I
uh,
don't give a
fuck
shit.
around, find out.
Yeah,
And they
Yeah.
fucked around and found out in a hard way. And I think it's
Mm.
good they did. I think it taught them a lesson that, you know, hopefully sticks for a very long time.
well, Chaosium was brilliant. If you saw some of their posts,
Yeah, we did.
we're like, we're not those. You
No,
crack
no,
on. No, and that's one thing, particularly Call of Cthulhu. You're seeing all these amazing scenarios come up because
yeah,
people are like, "Yeah, they're encouraging us. Great, we'll do it." And
yeah.
I
But yeah,
don't.
Chaosium is one of the masters of supporting the independent creators.
Mhm.
Uh, there's basically nothing we can do if we ask nicely first. And their Miskatonic repository program allows us to publish any sort of scenario you want. Um, if there's something in it, and I haven't really heard of anything, but if there's something in it that's not appropriate, they will tell you and say, could you please remove it? But I haven't heard of that happening, because you create it, it's your name on it. We might have our, you know, company name on the brand,
Mhm.
but people will know that you created the scenario, and get a hold of you if they don't think your scenario. If they don't like your scenario, it won't
They
sell.
don't go to Chaosium and go, "Why did you allow this?" They'll tell
No.
you directly.
Yeah, absolutely, and they'll give it a 1-star review and tell me this sucks. Don't write stuff like that again. So there's self-policing in the community like that. But Chaosium is very supportive, and they have positions that are working just as the contact, the liaisons between Chaosium and the creators, and those people are working their ass off to support it and promote it and give great advice. And they work their hours, and then they work outside their hours because it's their hobby, it's their life.
Yeah, it's a passion.
Yeah, it's a passion. Yeah, that's the right word.
Yeah, and that's like I said, that's a lot of people could take note outside of, and
in
that's
a
why I
lot
like
in a lot of the
introducing
communities.
role playing creators to the outside horror world as well, because a lot of folks could learn about a genuine spirit
Passion.
of creativity, a genuine passion, and a genuine support for each other, because we all want it's not a games master versus the players. Everyone works together to have a good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Game master needs players, players need game master, keeper, you name it. We need each other. We need scenarios. We need new scenarios created, because if you're playing regularly once a week, you're gonna go through them. I mean, if you're the same group playing every week, you're gonna run out of scenarios if there's not new ones being made. And yeah, there can be some elements, but there is that understanding. Yeah, we don't want to be bored, so we want something new, but we can use the same elements from this, tweak it a bit, and there you go, brand new scenario. There's this expectation as well with Call of Cthulhu that it should be 1930s Boston in America, but especially over recent years, that's been blown out of the water. The game is so versatile and popular that covers all time.
It's very vibrant, very live. And Chaosium has been great with creating settings that allow you to play in modern time, in the Victorian area, in the Roman Empire. They are so you can play in the Wild West setting as well. They create all of these different lore books that will tweak the rules and allow you to play in different places and different periods. And I think it's the good thing about playing in the 1920s is that I wouldn't say it's science fiction, but it's almost science fiction, because you can't really wrap your round around it unless you research a lot. So basically in the 1920s, anything goes. And if and people should really do this, try for fun and look up weird inventions of the 1920s, and you'll get surprised at what people came up with. And it hasn't survived to modern day, but you will find inventions that you will say, how in the world did they invent this? How could they even think the thought? There are so many crazy and wild and weird stuff that's basically science fiction in the 1920s. And here we are 100 years later, and looking at it and saying, whoa.
Yeah,
but I think we've been walking out of tangents a lot here.
Yeah,
but that's that's what we're here to do. Oh, I'm sorry. There's an audience out there that want to be entertainment. Well, sorry, we're here for us. We're here just to have a talk. If you enjoy yourselves, no problem.
Yeah,
I think about the what you said about the 20s, as I don't like to play Call of Cthulhu in the 20s because it's too far removed from what I know and my knowledge.
Yeah, it's hard to relate to.
It's hard to relate to, and also not a very friendly time for people of color or women necessarily. So it's kind of like you have to stretch reality a bit.
Yeah,
to accommodate for these kinds of characters.
Unless you want to play in that as part of the horror.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
it's up to people have that choice.
Yes, but that is part of what I think is getting old. As a woman, playing a woman in a setting that doesn't allow for women to be equal is kind of like, I have done that for 20 years. I need something different. That's not horror anymore. It's boring and tedious. If you, as a man, would like to try that out, of course, more power to you. But I would not like that. I would like to play as an equal, and I don't
Yeah,
want to
but
play
you're
as a
also
man.
not limited to playing,
So
and that's you don't have to play
yeah,
a female character.
no,
Oh,
but
or a
that's the
male.
thing.
Or you know what I
If
mean?
I want to play a female character, and
Yeah.
that is limited by the setting, then I will say no, thank you. I will play something else. But that means that I'm playing a lot of men if I'm playing in the wrong era, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah.
So
But once again, that's
And
personal choice.
that's the great about
That's
role-playing games, that we have
yeah,
the option of, doing all of that. That's
yeah,
one
we
of
can
the
change the
yeah
20s to be more accommodating. Of course we can.
yeah,
Mhm.
or
Um,
we can play in modern as we've created scenarios for where people can play
well, we're
basically.
currently showcasing
exactly.
Helter Skelter by Andy is it Bateman? No, Andy Headley. Sorry, Andy the Goat
Yeah,
Headley. So we're showcasing his scenario that he wrote, and it's set in
yeah,
the '60s, and it's around Charlie Manson and the Manson family. You know, that's kind of the
Mm,
yes,
scenario.
yeah.
So there you go. We're in the '60s.
yeah,
Back to crazy inventions. We just finished Cracked and Crooked Manse,
yeah. That's a great scenario as well.
and I was
That's
looking
a
up.
classic.
We had this idea. Oh, we'll be the mystery machine, the Scooby gang.
Yeah,
And I looked up 1920s camper vans, and oh my god, some of the stuff people created,
it's crazy.
carriages is just like, huh?
Yeah, it is. But that's
Uh,
again, it's the creativity, and we enjoy that as role players and creators. So, but I don't know if we should sort of wrap it up. We've been around a lot of
sure, it's
things
up to
and
you
been
guys. You know
talking.
what I mean? I'm happy to
Oh,
obviously
we've been
talk on.
talking for close to
Yep,
1.5 hours,
yep.
and I don't know if we are boring people to bits.
Oh no, these things
Um,
go on as they go on. You know what I mean? That's it. And yeah, not a
but
problem.
Yeah.
I was going to go through each of the scenarios, but what I'll say is, is it Hige, the art of Hige,
the art of
Big.
hygge,
Hugen,
hygge,
Hug. Right, sorry.
hygge.
So we're going to be hopefully playing that scenario
Yeah,
shortly.
that's
So I
my
haven't read
scenario
it.
actually.
Yeah, I can't read it because I'm going to be a player.
Okay, and I
Because
hope
no
you have
spoil. You
fun.
know, what I mean, that's the word.
And
Phil's our sort of forever GM and forever keeper.
I don't know
He like
who's going to be the keeper for you.
It'll be Phil
Okay,
Bella from Brotherhood of Dice.
yeah. Tell
He's
him
our
to write
resident
me if he
keeper.
has any questions at all. I am more than happy. I've included that in, when you bought the scenario, you get an email and it says,
Mhm.
"Thank you for buying," and I've included my email there and saying, if you have any questions, ask. And
Oh yeah,
I'm
yeah.
happy.
That's like I
I'm
said.
happy to answer
We've
questions.
got Helter Skelter to run through, and then obviously he uses Foundry. That's one thing. I'll just final question. In today's age, do you take VTTs into consideration when writing scenarios and creating them, virtual
Not
tabletops?
not at all. I didn't.
Not at all.
Is
And
that something that is expected now, or do people?
I think it depends on the system.
Mhm.
It's more or less mandatory in Dungeons and Dragons. Because a lot of the combat is orientated towards miniatures and 5 foot reach and weapon reach and where you're positioned in regards to the monsters or the lair. And in at least in my experience, Call of Cthulhu is very much theater of mind. So you describe the scene, but it's not important whether or not you are within 10 or 15 or 20 feet on left or right side. That's all created by the keeper and the players
Mhm.
in their mind.
And
Um,
also, who cares if you're 20 feet or 30 feet away when you're eaten?
Yeah,
yeah,
which is usually the end
basically,
of.
if you're fa-
Or
if you
insane.
yeah, because in Dungeons and Dragons, if you're facing a red dragon, you can potentially win. In Call of Cthulhu, if you're facing Cthulhu, uh,
Was
you're
it
going to be either insane or greasy spot on the floor.
10D100 sanity loss?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So
If I remember from the rule book rightly, it's 10D100 sanity loss if you make Cthulhu.
Yeah.
I don't remember the old numbers for it, but I think in today's age, I think it's 1d100 you lose. You can, in theory, survive that, but most of the time your brain will be oozing out your ears.
Yeah, and that's it.
So most of it is mind's eye theater, and I'm not paying any regards to the VTT because it hasn't been necessary. And again, it's my own personal opinion and experience, but I don't think it's needed in a podcast or in a stream for Call of Cthulhu. But in Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder, it's going to be more or less mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
No, interesting. Yeah, different scenarios. We've used it sometimes. Sound effects. It's not, but most time it's just us like this going through a scenario, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, I want to just say thanks very much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. I shared
We
a
were
link.
happy you had us.
It's great to talk about this. I just, once again, the excitement and the tangents and just getting off on different things. That's what it's all
That's
about.
great. That's what we like to do.
Yeah.
And we're going to work together again. We've connected the 6 first scenarios in one bundle, and we're working on a volume 2. I'm working on a sequel, so there will be a sequel to the Art of Hygge.
Fantastic.
And Maja is working on something as well.
Yeah, I have 3 different ideas. One of the scenarios is written in Norwegian, so I just need to translate and, of course, detail everything. But that's set in Svalbard, which is an island to the very north. I think it's even further north than Iceland.
What
But
is
it
it with you
belongs
and
to
islands?
Norway. Isolation is a great element of horror.
It is.
No escape.
So if it's desolate and cold and dark, I'm all for it.
That's great.
Yeah. I don't be a keeper very often, but one of the games I did run on this channel was The Lightless Beacon.
Yeah, that's a great
That's
scenario as well.
Great. And actually talking about the player I had on board, he finished up going, how about I just set fire to the lighthouse? And I'm like, that's actually a bloody good idea. For when the deep ones started coming. But it worked. I just made it work. I'm like, yes, go into the stone part of the lighthouse, burn down the cottage.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I once ruined a game master's scenario evening by, it wasn't a lighthouse, it was a tower, and as we ended, I waved my torch around to burn away the cobwebs, and lit a goblin, which basically, no, not goblin, a goblin, a blanket hanging there. So the tower caught fire, and the monster we were supposed to be was at the top of the tower, but as the tower burned down, the monster was killed, and we were standing outside, and the game master was sort of, I didn't plan for this,
but I'll give it to you.
So I ruined an evening of exploration on the tower because he just, it's wooden floors, there's carpets everywhere. Bugger, you burned down my tower.
Brilliant, love it. But that's the joy of it. But yeah, thanks very much. Obviously, folks, links in the description. Check out Northern Lights and Darkness and the Drive-Thru RPG links there as well. Check out the scenarios. Also shared them in the chat. So just easy to say, obviously, thanks very much for turning up. And for everyone else, thank you for tuning in and watching. And just easy to say, keep up to date with the channel, do the typey clicky things. Until next time, keep it creepy, keep it horrific.